Welcome into Cover Your Balls, folks. I'm Mitch Balla.
I'm Jordan McCallie.
We're here to cover your balls on New Year's Eve, the last day in 2020, Jordan, episode 13, and we have a phenomenal show for
Phenomenal
today.
show.
Quite possibly our best yet.
Probably our best. I mean, if I had to take a stab at it. I'm excited. We have two guests joining us today, Mitch. Two guests?
Two guests, not one, but two.
Our
And
college football analyst is coming in first, right?
Absolutely. Our college football analyst, Jake Pallotta, is going to join us. And then a friend of mine, Nick Padone, we'll introduce him a little later. He will be coming in to talk NFL with us. A big weekend in the NFL, big matchup for our Cleveland Browns versus the Steelers. Playoff implications on the line. Great afternoon headlines. Of course, who has bigger balls? We'll tell you at the end of the show. But first, Jordan, before we jump into college football with Jake Pallotta, we have a top four at 4. And today, our top 4 is your top 4 worst foods to be reheated in either the microwave or the oven. So, sir, the floor is yours.
Oh man, this is tough because I love leftovers. All my family knows I love leftovers. Me and my oldest brother Keith will eat just about anything except these 4 things reheated. Coming in at number 4, eggs. I'm a huge egg guy. I'll eat eggs however you make them, Mitch, but you can't reheat them, and I don't want them cold. Number 3 coming in here, I'm going to look down. Pizza. I like pizza when it's in the oven, but most time when people reheat pizza, they put it in the microwave. If you put pizza in the microwave, we can't be friends. It makes pizza soggy, and it makes it worse. One trick me and my mom use when we buy pizza from places is we get it from places after they make it. So we'll pick it up from Pizza Hut and then re-put it in the oven and make it crispy. That's how you do pizza. Number 2, Mitch, we have fries. Everybody likes fries. There's nothing more disappointing than going to a fast food restaurant or even worse, going to a sit-down restaurant and having cold fries, almost uneatable. And Mitch, coming in at number 1, pancakes. You know how many times I have refused, like, there's been probably over 10 times where people have brought me pancakes cold, and I'm like, I can't eat these. I can't even eat pancakes 15 minutes after they're made, let alone reheat them. Mitch, that's my top 4 at 4.
That's a good list. I mean, the food isn't good when it's reheated, like you said, but I mean, I respect your top 4.
I'm glad that you respect me. That's important.
I'm going to go. I went strictly foods that are terrible reheated in the microwave, not the oven. And let me tell all of our listeners, whether you're listening to us on Spotify, on Apple Podcast, watching us live on YouTube, anywhere you're watching or listening to us, if you need to reheat some foods, get an air fryer. Air fryers are legit.
I've never used an air fryer, Mitch. Never used one.
Jordan, we just got an air fryer this year, and let me tell you, you know how much my mom likes to cook? I think it's helped her. And that's insane to think. But either way, we're not talking air fryer. We're talking microwave. Number 1, Jordan, French fries out of the refrigerator. You can't put those in the microwave, and they're not good. They're just not. Number 2 for me, and I'm pretty specific here, leftover Chipotle, but specifically the rice. The rice
You're
in
going
a
to have
bowl.
to get somebody else to co-host this show if you're telling me you can't reheat Chipotle.
I said a bowl. I told you it's specific. It's very specific.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me you can't are you talking about a ceramic bowl? We're not talking about like objects you don't eat, Mitch. We're talking about objects you eat.
Oh, I know. We're talking about a burrito bowl that has, my bowl, a lot of different options in there. But the rice, when you pull that out of the fridge, like sometimes it's so big you can't eat it all. It is not good reheated, in my opinion. The rice is like hard. It's crunchy. Nobody likes crunchy rice. Number 3 is ice cream. Every time I put ice cream in the microwave, it melts. Well, I thought ice cream was like, how am I supposed to eat the ice cream if I put it in the microwave?
And guys, that's our top 4 for 4.
That was only my 3rd. Oh, okay, I guess we're pressed for time today, folks.
That was only your 3rd?
Yeah, but it's okay.
Who's running these controls over here? Who did that? Did I tell you to go on to the next section? I don't think I did. I'm sorry.
Well, if anybody's interested, that could possibly be you.
It could
sometime
be,
in the
because I am the one controlling the controls. What's your number 1, Mitch, after ice cream?
Oh, number 4. I went from the top down.
Oh, you went from the top down. Who does that? Jeez.
I do. You know why? Because this is our show.
It is our show.
All right, and then number 4, Jordan, is actually waffles. You can't reheat waffles in the
Oh,
microwave.
that's a good one. That's a really good one, Mitch.
You can't do that. And just like your pancakes, so that was my top 4 worst foods to be reheated in the microwave. And so now we should probably get to why people are here. And that's to talk football, get their footballs covered. All the balls are usually covered here on Cover Your Balls. But tomorrow's New Year's Day, the first day of 2021. And that means there's some big football games the next few days in college football. So before we dive into those games, let's bring in our expert college football analyst, the one, the only, Jake Pallotta.
Hey, Jake, what's going on, brother?
Not much, guys. How are you?
Good. It's good to have you. Good to have you back.
Welcome back, Jake. So, gentlemen, as we know, the college football playoff semifinal games are tomorrow. We will get to the rest of the New Year's Six Bowls. So let's start with the first semifinal game, which is tomorrow at 4 p.m., the Rose Bowl in Dallas. Keep in mind it got moved because of California's guidelines of no fans. Number 1, Alabama taking on number 4, Notre Dame. Jake, what do you think? What are you looking for? Let's start there. What are you looking for tomorrow in the Rose Bowl?
So what I'm looking for tomorrow is obviously I think a big statement needs to be made by both teams. Notre Dame went into that game against Clemson, and I think everyone was expecting them to get blown out, and they did in fact get blown out. But then on the other side of the coin, you look at an Alabama team who was expected to, I think, roll through Florida in the SEC championship, and a Florida team that we saw last night, and I'm sure we'll talk about more, wasn't that good to begin with.
Nope.
So you're looking for both teams to make a statement. And I think Alabama in the past has always come to these games ready with a great game plan. And as a lot of people have talked about, Notre Dame historically hasn't done well in these bowl games. But I'm interested to look at that. With that being said, I think it's going to be closer than most people give it credit for. I wouldn't be surprised if Notre Dame comes out fighting. I would still have to take Alabama, though, in this game.
They are the Fighting Irish, Jake.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
They didn't do much. They didn't fight much in that ACC championship game, though, Jordan.
No.
And I'm glad Jake said it's going to be close. Before I let you go, Jordan, the spread for the game tomorrow is Alabama by 19.5.
It's a lot of points.
A lot of points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's going to be a really interesting game. Like, I'm not going to put too much on Notre Dame for that loss just because it's, you guys know, I mean, you guys have played sports at a high level, guys. It's so hard to beat somebody twice, even when you're playing an inferior opponent, let alone a superior opponent. When I was looking through the games Alabama's played and the games that I've watched, they don't really have a weakness. I mean, if we want to really talk about what they're not great at, because they're great at about everything, they're not great at defending the pass. They're 77th in the country against the pass, which is why a lot of football analysts and people out there think that depending on who wins the Clemson-Ohio State game, they might have a chance versus Alabama because both teams are so efficient at passing the ball. But honestly, if Notre Dame can play keep away and just run the ball, because Notre Dame is one of the best teams in the country at running the football at 217 yards a game, if they can run the ball effectively and really limit the possessions, anybody can win one game. Did we not see the Clemson-Ohio State game last year where Ohio State was most definitely the superior? I mean, they were definitely robbed in that game, but they were a very superior team to Clemson all around. From special teams to offense to defense, I mean, they were the clear, in my opinion. I mean, that game was almost 20-0 at halftime before that Shaun Wade call. Anything can happen. I think this game, Jake, I think you're definitely right. I think this game is going to be closer than we expect it to be. Vegas is not often wrong, but they have been wrong because it's been a crazy season. I mean, Florida was, I think, 3-point favorites last night, and, they were losing by 40 points at one point.
What?
40 points, yeah. Mitch, it's a lot.
Oh, my power was out. I didn't get to see that game. I'm sure Kyle Trask balled out still, but we'll talk about that later.
But Notre Dame, and I'll finish this up quick, Mitch, so you can go, they have no margin for error. I mean, Alabama is number 1 in the country with defensive touchdowns. They're number 5 passing attack. They're number 9 for red zone offense. They're number 2 at scoring offense. They're number 12 at rushing defense. Literally the only thing that they're ranked outside the top 15 is their the passing attack, and that's really been the story for around the whole country, where people have been slinging the ball all through the air. So it's not just an Alabama thing. It's been a trend across college football the whole year. I expect Alabama to get this win, though. Probably about 2 scores. I'm going to say 11 points.
Okay. Gentlemen, with all disrespect, this is going to be a blowout. I mean, what did Notre Dame do against Bama the last time they played in a bowl game? Anybody remember that?
I do.
They didn't show up. What they actually did was they took some of the band members and some boosters that had bought tickets and let them get on the field against Alabama when they got blown out of the water. And that's what's going to happen tomorrow. Notre Dame is not a good football team. There are 3 top teams in the country, and those 3 teams are 1, 2, and 3 right now in the college football rankings. I fully anticipate Alabama to cover the 19.5-point spread. I'll ask you guys who the biggest playmaker is going to be. It's a no-brainer in my opinion. We already saw a record broke this year when it comes to an award. For me, Devonta Smith, however you want to say it, is the difference maker. I don't know how on earth Notre Dame is going to stop them. I don't think they're going to sleep tonight trying to game plan for him. And if they game plan for him, Alabama has Najee Harris, and he will run wild on the Fighting Irish tomorrow, who won't be fighting at all. So, Jake, I'll throw it back to you. Who is the biggest X factor on either side of the ball tomorrow?
Yeah, so I'm really glad that you mentioned those few guys, because I think obviously a storyline for this whole year has been Alabama's offense. I mean, you've got guys like Devonta Smith, Najee Harris, and then Mac Jones. But I actually think the biggest playmaker for Alabama is going to be their cornerback and potential top 10 pick, Patrick Surtain, who's been really good this whole year, but he's been overshadowed by the guys on offense. And like we said, Alabama, one of their only weaknesses, you could maybe call it a weakness, has been their pass defense. And if my prediction holds, I think this is going to be a high-scoring affair. I think Ian Book is going to play better than he did against Clemson. So I think this is Patrick Surtain's chance to go out there and be the star of the show, as opposed to one of the guys on the offensive side.
Jordan?
Oh, Mitch, I'm going to send that to you.
Already said it's Devonta Smith, and if Notre Dame stops him, they're not stopping Najee Harris too.
I mean, they're not going to stop either of them. You don't stop superstars. You limit them the best you can. It's just kind of like the superstar in the NBA, at least in college football. In pro football, it's possible to shut down star wide receivers. In college football, it's much harder. So I don't expect either of them to be stopped. I mean, they might be limited. I mean, if you stop Smith to 100 yards tomorrow, that would be a huge win. Would that not be a huge win? 100 yards? I mean, Mac Jones, I think he averages 354.2 yards a game.
Crazy.
Not to get too specific, but I mean, that's only that's less than a third. You know, if you can limit that, I mean, you have a chance, as much of a chance as you can have. Like I've said, Notre Dame they can't really do anything wrong tomorrow at all.
They can't. They have no margin for error in the Rose Bowl tomorrow. I will say this. I do think Clemson's defense showed up in that ACC championship. However, it was a pissed off Clemson team, like we talked about when we previewed the conference championship weekend. And Clemson had something to prove. Now, I do think their defense is better than Bama, so I think Notre Dame can make some plays on offense. But ultimately, guys, I just don't see how that defense, let's keep in mind, that gave up 40 to Clemson earlier this year to a freshman quarterback, a bunch of starters out, and then gets blown to smithereens by the actual Clemson team. They're not going to stop Bama. So I think I know who everyone's picking. Let's go on record, though. Jake, are you taking the Fighting Irish or are you taking the Crimson Tide?
I will take the Crimson Tide. I do think that Notre Dame covers, though.
Okay. Jordan?
I mean, that's a lot of points to think that the 4th best team in the country is almost 3 touchdowns worse than the best team. I mean, this Alabama team's really good, but I mean, I've seen about 10 teams just as good, if not better than this team in the last, 7 years. And so there's no way they cover 3 touchdowns. Notre Dame is going to show up.
I have the Crimson Tide rolling over the Fighting Irish, and I have the Crimson Tide covering the 19.5-point spread. The only question I have left about this game, gentlemen, the over-under is set at 65.5. Jake, over or under?
I would have to go with the over here. I think the only way Notre Dame stays in this game is if it kind of turns into a shootout similar to their first game against Clemson. If this is a low-scoring affair, I expect it to be low-scoring on Notre Dame's side and high-scoring on Alabama's side. So I'm hoping for the over here, just so my prediction holds.
Yeah, I'm going to say under, and I know that I'm going to be in the minority on that. I'm thinking if I'm Brian Kelly and we win the coin toss, I'm thinking we want the ball first. I don't even want to defer to the second half. I want to set the tempo right out the gate and try to have a long sustained drive and try to keep their offense off the field and set the tempo early. I know that's not typically what you want to do in a championship game, but I feel like it's really important that Notre Dame dictates the pace of the game early and often. And long drive to start the game, and maybe you get Alabama off the field on a 3 and out, and all of a sudden the game is much, much, much different. I actually like the under.
Interesting. I'm going to go over here. Over the 65.5, and obviously going with Bama. It'll be interesting to see though if you guys are right, if Notre Dame can hang in there and cover the spread, and who knows, maybe they're listening right now and they're taking this personal and they're using this as bulletin board material, and if so, that'd be great if they go in there and upset Alabama. But until that happens, we just move on to what? A rematch of the 2020 PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. Last year, in which Clemson defeated the Ohio State University guys. A lot of people still hurt and bothered by that game. One thing I know, actually, there's a few things I know. Dabo Swinney's an idiot. A lot of these Buckeyes came back for revenge on that game. If you've seen the hype videos, if you've seen their tweets, their posts, they came back to face their biggest rival. And that's right, Clemson is Ohio State's biggest rival because Ohio State doesn't have a rival. It's not Michigan. It sure as hell isn't Michigan. I can tell you that right now.
Can it beat Clemson? Don't you have to beat Clemson to make it a rivalry?
Right,
just like Michigan has to beat Ohio State?
I'm glad you said that because that's where I was going. If Ohio State beats this, I would say this is the biggest and best non-conference rivalry in college football. This is a team that this will now be their fourth matchup in the last 5 years. And Clemson has won the last 3, although we think Ohio State was robbed last year. So 8 p.m. kickoff tomorrow night in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans, the All-State Sugar Bowl. Jake, number 2 Clemson versus number 3 Ohio State. What are you looking for?
So yeah, what I'm looking for, it's like you said when Clemson played Notre Dame the second time around. They came like a team possessed. They had something to prove, and that has to be the way that the Ohio State Buckeyes come out to play. I mean, they have enough bulletin board material to cover the next 3 seasons with what Clemson's been saying. You've got the receivers talking about, they think it's a rivalry. We really don't think it's anything like that. Dabo Swinney's got them as the 11th ranked team in the country. Ohio State doesn't need any more bulletin board material. They need to come out pissed off and ready to play football, and I expect that they'll do that. Now, this Clemson team is really good, so a lot of things are going to have to happen for Ohio State to win, but I expect a good game, and I expect Ohio State to be pissed off.
Yeah, I expect a fight. I think this is going to be a really physical game. Look for someone to get thrown out. I'm sure that will be a prop. I would bet money on it that somebody is kicked out of this game. Man, this is a tough matchup for Ohio State. This is a really tough matchup. I had to decide who I wanted to be before the show started today. Was I going to be Jordan the homer, the big Buckeye fan, the guy who thinks Ohio State can beat anybody, or am I going to give the people what they need? And what you need, America, is you need the truth. And the truth is, Ohio State has had so much go wrong this regular season where they haven't had any continuity. No consistency. Everybody's been in and out in COVID protocol. They started the season late. And I just don't think they're a polished team this late in the season. And we are late in the season, but how late are we? Ohio State's only played 6 games. Dabo Swinney made a lot of points, even though he contradicted himself many times. But he had a point in terms of, how many times have we seen Ohio State lose to a poor opponent, maybe post pre-Urban Meyer, a few times where we've lost to teams that we have no business losing to. Just like Clemson lost to a 3-9 Syracuse team 3 years ago or 4 years ago when they had Deshaun Watson. It happens. So not playing that many games has really hurt Ohio State. And Clemson is leading they're number 4 in the country in sacks. And that's a big deal to me because Justin Fields does not throw the ball efficiently when he's under fire. So the question is Ryan Day going to roll Justin Fields out more? What's he going to do from a offensive standpoint to really confuse what is it? Their defensive coordinator's name, Venables, who's a great Venables, who's a great defensive coordinator. How are they going to really confuse them? It's going to be really interesting. Honestly, I think the game is on the Ohio State offensive line. If they can hold up and just be average, I think they get the running game going, which they are top 5 team in the country at running the football. I don't care how good your defense is. It's really, 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 really hard to stop a team who can run the ball that well. I mean, we just had a guy who ran over 313 yards and broke Eddie George's record for most yards in a game as an Ohio State. So, even when Ohio State wasn't running the ball well in the first couple of games, and that's what we all said, we were still averaging well over 200 yards a game. So if our rushing attack, when it doesn't look good, can still average that, I think we're going to be a problem up front for Clemson. But I still think with the experience that Trevor Lawrence has and my lack of faith in Justin Fields, just the last 3 games have really been troublesome. Even though everything's happened with we were missing 22 players when we played Northwestern in the Big Ten title game. Some of his passes were almost inexcusable. Now, it is noteworthy to say that one of the pieces they were missing was Brian Hartline. That's their wide receivers coach. And so you saw a lot of miscommunication between the wide receivers and Justin Fields in that game. And so I feel like I need to bring that up. If I'm going to be hard on Justin Fields, I need to probably bring up what's stopped him somewhat from playing well. But, if Justin Fields has a good game, Ohio State can beat Clemson. I just don't think he will, though. I don't think he will. So I have Clemson in this game.
And Jordan, I think you're 100% correct. I think the fate of this game rests on Justin Fields' shoulders. Now, one big factor is those players that missed the Big Ten championship game, they are back. And that means quite possibly he's not the best, but top 3 wide receiver in college football. Chris Olave will be back. That is Fields' favorite target.
Yep.
Now that lets Garrett Wilson get the second best corner on a team, and we know how good Garrett Wilson can be.
Electric.
You add Brian Hartline can come back and coach now. So you're adding all these playmakers back. One knock on Justin Fields is he holds the ball way too long. He wants to make a home run play happen every time he passes the ball. And he can't do that against Clemson tomorrow. He needs to take what is given to him. And eventually, if the run game gets going like it did against Northwestern,
that's a really good point.
The deep ball is going to be there with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson on the outside. And we know that Olave is Fields' favorite target. And we know how that game ended last year with a miscommunication between the two, resulting in an interception in the end zone that ended Ohio State's hopes of going to the national championship. So you have Fields and you have Olave who are determined. You have Wyatt Davis who came back, Sean Wade who came back. A lot of players came back specifically for this revenge game. I think Ohio State shows up. Now, Fields' thumb, it affected him in the Big Ten championship game. He claims he's back to 100%. We're only going to know tomorrow once he gets hit and once he throws with other people coming at him in a different colored uniform and helmet. You can only do so much in practice. I guarantee he's not allowed to be touched in practice in Columbus, which I wouldn't let my quarterback, if he's that good, be touched either. But if they get the run game going with Trey Sermon, who, guys, I am getting a 2015 Ezekiel Elliott type vibe. I know it's crazy. I know he had one big game, but I am getting that vibe all of a sudden. Ohio State's going to win this game. I am more confident this year in Ohio State than I was last year. And it's crazy to say that because Ohio State the team last year was way better. No doubt. I also think the team last year for Clemson was way better than this year. Clemson had better threats at the receiving position. But guys, there's one thing nobody's talking about. Nobody that I found out today. Last year, Clemson had 2 offensive coordinators, 2 co-coordinators. One who is now the head coach at UCF.
The other one's out.
The other one is now the offensive coordinator here, he is out. For the first time in Trevor Lawrence's career at Clemson, he will have a new play caller in what will be the biggest game of his season, I would say, and could be the biggest game of his career because he wants another national championship. He wants to go beat Alabama.
That's a good point.
So whether it's Dabo Swinney or somebody else, you're putting somebody, throwing them into the fire in a national semifinal game against a team that everybody's counting out besides Ohio State fans, really. Even some Ohio State fans are saying there's no shot. That is something to keep an eye on. What does he call? How familiar is he with Trevor Lawrence and what he wants to do in certain situations and certain downs? I thought that's a big factor. So but off of that, Jake, who is the biggest X factor tomorrow night?
Well, I think you guys hit the nail on the head earlier. I mean, I have to say that this game falls on the shoulders of Justin Fields. There's been a lot of talk recently. A lot of mock drafts for the NFL have come out. He's been sliding down the board progressively. And the fact is, Trey Sermon's not going to rush for 300 yards. Ohio State is not going to shut down Trevor Lawrence. So for Ohio State to win this game, Justin Fields is going to have to go out and be the guy that we all thought he was at the beginning of the season. He has to put together a Heisman performance. He has to outduel Trevor Lawrence. And I think he can. He's got the talent back. He's got the skill players back. And then to your other point about Clemson's offensive coordinator being out, that's a huge deal. A lot of people don't take that into account when they look at a college football team. I mean, the relationship between a starting quarterback and an offensive coordinator is so important. I mean, as a quarterback, they should give you any situation on the field and you should be able to predict what your offensive coordinator is going to call. That's the type of chemistry you need to have between the coach and the player. And without that chemistry, I'm interested to see what Clemson's game plan looks like offensively. Now, I still think they're going to score points. They still have a lot of talent. But I think if Trevor Lawrence comes out, or if Justin Fields comes out, and plays the game that we know he can, I think Ohio State can win this game too.
Yeah. And guys, where else have we seen this before with an offensive coordinator being out? Alabama. Lane Kiffin a couple years ago. And so we've seen this before. And history says that, like you guys have said, that it's going to make a big difference. But, one thing that I forgot to bring up that's really important, everybody is, if you look at the numbers and you didn't look at records, it would look like everybody around the country has a good offense, right? Just because of the numbers. They're so inflated this year. I mean, Kent State, through 4 games, has the most yards per game out of any team in the country at 606. It's Kent State. So a lot of teams have good offenses. Notre Dame has the worst total offense out of the top 4 teams in the college football playoff at number 22. But nobody except Clemson is ranked in the top 10 in total defense except them. And they're really good at stopping the run. And so, Ohio State, they're going to try to run the ball. And Clemson, they're going to try to stop. That's where we need to keep an eye on, because I think that's where the game is going to be won or lost for both these teams. Man, this is going to be a slugfest. I'm excited for it. A little more excited than I was last year, and I thought that was the best Ohio State team that I've ever seen. Actually, probably the best college football team I think that I've ever seen was last year. And I'm even more excited this year. So, we're going to have Ohio State's going to have their hands full with Clemson, but I'm excited to see what it looks like. Either way, whether it's Clemson or Ohio State, I think this game is decided by one possession. The spread on this game is 7.5, which I thought was an aggressive spread to have. But it's gonna be interesting.
I like that. And Jake, before I give you who I like, just to clarify, because I have guys in the chat or people text me that are watching this right now, I want you to reiterate how. And for those that don't know, Jake is a college quarterback, played quarterback all throughout his life. How big of an issue it can be, because somebody said Trevor Lawrence could call his own plays and they'll be okay. Do you agree with that, or do you really think that no offensive coordinator and a first-time play caller will affect Clemson tomorrow night?
Well, I think you would hope that Trevor Lawrence is at that point in the career where he knows the offense well enough. But to expect a guy to be on the field, and people need to understand the difference between being on the field and looking out and trying to decipher what a defense is doing, as opposed to a guy who's up in the press box and can see everything. He can see the personnel packages the defense is bringing out on the field, seeing certain coverages, how the safeties shift. It's so much easier to see those things in the press box as opposed to standing behind center when you have 12 300-pounders standing in front of you. I mean, it's not an easy job. So as amazing as Trevor Lawrence is, as good as he probably knows this offense, to have an offensive coordinator that you have that chemistry with is so vital to the success of any quarterback. So I think it's a big miss for Clemson that they're missing him, and maybe Trevor Lawrence has enough pure talent and knowledge to get past that. But it'll be a struggle, and I think you'll see it on the field as well.
And that I agree with you. I just wanted to make sure I had somebody that would clarify that for me. So my biggest X factor tomorrow night, guys, I have two, and for two different reasons. On the defensive side for Ohio State, the first one's Haskell Garrett. I think you look at Ohio State, we have no dominant D lineman like we have with the Bosa brothers and Chase Young. Haskell Garrett, now announced an All-American or second-team All-American, depending where you look, needs to have a big game tomorrow night and get pressure on Trevor Lawrence to disrupt his timing, disrupt the flow of that offense. And if he does that, Shaun Wade needs to show that, one, he is an All-American, which I cannot believe he was voted an All-American, let alone first-team Big Ten, because he has been bad this year. He has been bad for someone that was predicted to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. He does not look like a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, and I think he's fallen victim to no pressure up front by the defensive line. But Shaun Wade got ejected last year for what they called was targeting. A lot of us disagreed with that call. He needs to prove something. I think he has a chip on his shoulder, and he wants to prove that he still is a top 10 corner going against the consensus number 1 overall pick in the draft. So those are the two guys I'm looking for. Gentlemen, lastly, who are you taking? Jake, you taking the Buckeyes or are you taking the Tigers?
My heart tells me that the Buckeyes are going to come out on top, but if I'm being completely honest and going with my gut, I would probably take the Tigers. I do think it'll be a close game, similar to Notre Dame, Alabama. I think this is going to be a shootout if the Buckeyes are going to stand a chance. I think Justin Fields is going to come out motivated and ready to play, but I would have to take Clemson overall.
Yeah, Jake, I think you said exactly how I'm feeling. Heart saying Ohio State wins, but man, if I had to put money on it, that's not the team I'm putting money. That's what I always ask myself. If I have a bias towards liking one team versus another, and both are about to play, I always ask myself, where would you put your money? And we don't know. I mean, Ohio State secondary could look even worse than they've looked already. They haven't played games.
You're right.
I mean, they're getting players back that haven't practiced in 3 weeks, and they play in tomorrow. And they got players back 3 days ago. For that reason alone, I mean, I would be a fool to pick Ohio State over Clemson, although I want Ohio State to win. I have Clemson by 4.
My heart tells me Ohio State. My gut and my head tell me it's a no-brainer, and it's Ohio State. I said it last couple of shows, Jordan, and I'm sticking to it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. You can clip it, and we'll bring it on the next show. I, for some reason, am more confident in Ohio State this year than I was last season. And that's crazy because we just talked about it. Ohio State's team last year was one of the best, if not the best, in program history with all the talent they had. And I don't know, maybe the homer in me is finally coming out because I usually don't try to pick like that. If you know me, I'm usually very negative when it comes to my Cleveland Browns takes.
But you do have an Ohio State hockey jersey in the back. So you like Ohio State enough to have a hockey jersey. I have to say that. You do have a hockey jersey in the back. I don't like Ohio State that much as you put your Ohio State scarf around your neck and your Ohio State
my
slippers.
Wig, my Buckeye necklace.
The cup.
and my
cup
Brutus.
is right next to you.
Oh yeah, this is my Ohio State
I didn't
cup.
even see that, Jake. That's hilarious.
But guys, I'm taking one. I'm going to take Ohio State plus 7.5. I think even if they do lose, you guys are right. This is a one possession game. I think it's going to be nip and tuck till the end. I think it's going to be a nail biter like it was last year. Ultimately, I'm envisioning this, and I know it's not going to happen, but I see Fields connecting with Olave on that same play that ended the season last year. Only this time they're on the same route, same page, and he hits them for a touchdown. They send Trevor Lawrence packing. They send Dabo Sweeney, who, by the way, is the most hateable person in college football. Agree or disagree?
He's the Draymond Green of college football.
We're going to talk about Dan Mullen here soon, aren't we? Because those two are
Yeah, those two are top.
Dan
But
Mullen's
if you're a
worse.
Clemson fan,
Good point, Jake.
if you're a Clemson fan and you're sitting here saying, "Oh, I don't hate Dabo Swinney," you're lying to yourself. Just stop. It's New Year's Eve. Admit it now and start the new year right.
New
Just
Year's
stop
resolution. Stop
Okay.
lying.
Get
Sure,
some help,
sure.
okay? Because he's not a likable guy. So either way, Jake and Jordan are taking Clemson. I am taking Ohio State. We are all taking Alabama. Gentlemen, let's go to the New Year's Six Bowls really quick. Some big matchups. We're only talking about 5 because no one gives a flying fadoodle about the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. And if you do, tough. So first off, we'll start with the Peach Bowl. Cincinnati, who is number 8, versus Georgia, number 9. Georgia is a 7-point favorite. The over-under 51.5 in this game. Jake, who do you like?
So I actually like the spread here. I think it's going to be a really close game. If you'd asked me a few weeks ago, I would have said Cincinnati. I love Luke Fickell. I love the system they're in. But Georgia is a team. They have more talent naturally, but then they're also a team who's kind of hitting their stride at the right time. I mean, they're averaging over 40 points, I think, over their last 3 games. I think the talent gap with that offense playing the way it is going to be a little too much for Cincy, so I'll take Georgia here.
Yeah, they are hitting their stride at the right time. They're getting really competent quarterback play. And why wasn't this guy playing the whole year, Jake? Why wasn't he starting at the beginning?
Question.
Where did this guy come from? This is a really difficult matchup for Cincinnati. A really difficult matchup. And honest to God, this might be the second best team in the SEC. It's possible. This late in the season, I think it's a tough matchup, but I actually like Cincinnati in this game. They play a rough style of defense. They're number 8 in total defense. I believe number 14 in the country at moving the ball on the ground. The question is, are they going to be able to move the ball on the ground against that Georgia defense? Georgia has had some incredible defenses the last decade in this pretty good defense. So I think it's a close game. I'm actually going to take Luke Fickell in the Bearcats, actually. I think it's close, though.
Jordan, I love the pick. I think this is going to be one of the best games, period. Like, I think from an intensity standpoint and close game standpoint, I think this is closer than Alabama Notre Dame. I also like Luke Fickell in Cincinnati. Georgia's defense is tough, don't get me wrong, but their offense is shaky. Are they the second best team in the SEC? I don't know, because apparently if you're from the SEC, you're just amazing, as we'll see with who else has made bowl games from the SEC here shortly. Cincinnati gives me that UCF vibe, who beat Auburn a few years ago in that bowl game. So I like Cincinnati tomorrow. And they'll obviously cover that 7-point spread. Gentlemen, the next game we have is the Citrus Bowl. Number 14, Northwestern versus unranked and 6-4 Auburn. The unranked Auburn Tigers got a bowl game. Jake, can you say SEC bias?
I completely agree with you. And that's really what I'm looking for. This Northwestern team, I don't think that game against Ohio State was a fluke. I mean, Ohio State obviously made some mistakes, but I think Northwestern's a really good football team with a really good coach, and he's going to have a really good game plan going into this game against Auburn. Does Auburn deserve to be there? That's a different conversation. They have lost to a lot of really good teams. The Georgia team we just talked about, and then you look at Alabama and Texas A&M. So they've had a good schedule, a good tough schedule, but it's really how much credit do you give the SEC? And I just don't think Auburn is that good of a football team. So I expect Northwestern to come away with this one with a big statement for the Big Ten.
Yeah, Mitch and Jake, this is what happens when you rank every single SEC school to start the year. You're going to have that many ranked at the end of the year as well, because they're just going to flip-flop. In a year where you just play conference games, that's exactly what's happened. All they've done is flip-flopped ranks. A team that's lost Gus Malzahn, they've already fired their head coach.
Who the hell's coaching?
I don't even know who's coaching in this game, but I definitely like Northwestern. I agree with you. Typically, teams like Northwestern is a lot like Iowa was a couple years ago. I think they're a really real team. I actually like them in this game by double digits. In Northwestern's not a team that puts a ton of points on the board, but I really think that they're going to give Auburn's offense just fits all over the place. And so I actually like Northwestern in this game.
Yep, I'm right there with you guys. The SEC bias is showing, and it's going to be proven that the SEC is not a complete conference. Auburn at 6-4 getting a New Year's Day bowl is a travesty. How did Oklahoma not get a New Year's Day bowl? But Auburn, it's a mess. Northwestern's going to win. I touched on it in our championship show, which you can go back and listen to. Their linebackers are 3 seniors that are tough. They were tough against Ohio State. They have, I believe he was the freshman of the year defensively for Northwestern, leads the country in interceptions with 6, made that phenomenal play in the end zone against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. I like Northwestern here to beat Auburn. They are a 4-point favorite. Over-under, guys, is 43.5. Kind of low compared to all the other over-unders we're looking at. But Northwestern has a defense. I'm kind of thinking under. I don't know what you guys think.
I think I'm with you on that. I think this will be kind of a low-scoring affair. I think Northwestern is going to come out and play solid defense. So,
I mean, most of their games are low-scoring just because they play really good situational defense. Even when they're giving up a 70-yard drive, you might go down the field 70 yards and come away with a field goal. That's how good they are at situational defense. I think this will be a low-scoring game. And watch,
right.
A week from now, we're going to do the preview of this, and Northwestern's going to put 60 points up on the board, and it's going to be the most they've ever scored towards a Power 5 team. Watch it happen now.
That's okay. As long as Northwestern wins and represents for the Big Ten, that's fine. And speaking of the Big Ten, the rest of the New Year's Six Bowls are actually going to be on January 2nd because the college football playoff is on New Year's Day. Sometimes it's on New Year's Eve. So, gentlemen, the next one is the Outback Bowl between Ole Miss and Indiana. But first, when's the last time you guys had Outback?
Oh, man. Good question. Actually, a couple weeks ago. My girlfriend, Day Chantel, took me to Outback. It was delicious. And there was nobody there because we're in a pandemic. There it is. You can keep going.
Jake, when was the last time you had Outback?
It's probably been a couple of years, I'm going to be honest. I think I've transitioned more to a Texas Roadhouse kind of guy. So Outback, it's been a few.
Ooh, hot take here. If, it seems like the trend is people going to Roadhouse and not Outback. 4 years from now, guys, are we looking at a Roadhouse bowl game instead of an Outback bowl game?
I'm shocked. I'm shocked there's no Texas Roadhouse rolls game because their rolls are just that good. They'll put anybody else's, bread out of the water. I mean, that's a fact. But less about Outback and Texas Roadhouse and food. More to the bowl game. We have number 11 Indiana, Jake, against another unranked SEC team in a New Year's Day bowl in Ole Miss. We'll have to see if Lane Kiffin knows the plays coming in this game, fellas. Are we taking Ole Miss or Indiana? Indiana is an 8.5-point favorite.
Taking Indiana all the way, without question. Lane Kiffin, he can come out, he can put together a good offensive game plan. I know their quarterback, Matt Carroll. I've been following him since he was in the Elite 11 in high school. Got a great arm. He's a great talent, but I love Tom Allen. I love the Hoosiers, the team they put together. Even without Michael Penix, I think they're going to come out and win this game pretty handedly.
Yeah. How good is Indiana? Well, Indiana lost their star quarterback, who's one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and they're still ranked 11th, and they haven't lost a game outside of Ohio State. They are by far one of the most complete teams in college football. Like, no doubt about it. I mean, they didn't miss a beat. They lost their star quarterback. They came back the next week. What did they do? Oh, nothing. All they did is shut out Michigan State. You lose your star quarterback and you lose a game, and you come back and you shut out the Spartans. I think that says a lot about Indiana as a team and as a collective group. I like them a lot versus Ole Miss, but that's because they're playing Ole Miss, and that's not a good football team. And so I can't. It's unfortunate for Indiana that they don't get to play a better opponent because they deserve a better opponent. And I'm not saying that like the defensive tackle did or the linebacker did for Florida yesterday when he said, Oklahoma's not on our level, which obviously we found out that you're right. They're not on your level.
Right.
They're way above you. And I think Indiana is considerably so far, regardless of how this game ends up, even if Ole Miss, like, it's a miracle game, Indiana is a much better all-around team, in my opinion. And I like Indiana to not cover, but win this game.
Yeah, guys, the only thing I have to say is who's your daddy? Because Indiana is going to show up and spank Ole Miss and show Lane Kiffin that they're his daddy because Lane Kiffin doesn't know their plays. And Indiana is a great football team. Only loss is to the number 3 team in the country. And their head coach finished second in Coach of the Year voting. And that's only with 6 games. So that's impressive in my opinion as well. So I like Indiana. So moving on, we're going to go to the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. And this is an intriguing matchup. Number 25, Oregon versus number 10, Iowa State, a 4 p.m. kickoff on January 2nd. Iowa State's a 4-point favorite. Jake, the Ducks or the Cyclones?
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup. And I think if you'd have asked me before the Pac-12 championship game about Oregon playing in this bowl game, I don't think I would have liked them very much. But you know what? Oregon actually came out against USC, and they played a pretty good football game. Now, with that being said, Iowa State lost to Oklahoma, and that Oklahoma team just came out last night and showed that they are one of the best teams in the country. So I think Iowa State just has a better program at this point. I love the system that they have under Matt Campbell. So I think Iowa State comes away with this, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's closer than people are giving Oregon credit for.
Jordan McKelly, for the last 5 weeks, and you guys can attest to this, have gone after Iowa State in the Cyclones multiple times just because of where they were ranked. And it's not their fault, just like it's not Ohio State's fault that they're ranked what they're ranked. It's not Iowa State's fault either. I think they're a really good football team. Actually, I think the Big 12 might be better than we thought. I didn't think Florida was that good. But, I mean, the Big 12 has to be better than I think it is because Oklahoma was up by 40 over the so-called third best team in the SEC. I think Iowa State rolls in this game. I've watched Oregon play. They did have a lot of fight in that game against USC. I don't know how good these Pac-12 teams are. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but we haven't seen enough because we haven't seen as many games for them. So I like Iowa State. I think it's a huge advantage that they've played the amount of games they've played. They've played 9 games. That's a lot. So I like the Cyclones.
Yeah, for sure. And listeners, don't be fooled. Jordan McKelly is the biggest Kyle Trask fan, the biggest Florida Gators fan. He was actually, it was hard to get him on the show today because of last night's big time loss. But either way, we're taking the Cyclones here. Matt Campbell, shout out to the 330. He will be at a major school here in the next few years. I know he's a Power 5 school right now, or a school in a Power 5 conference, excuse me, but he will be at a big time school within the next 2 years. I guarantee it. And I like Iowa State to roll. I just don't think Oregon's that good. Our last game we're covering for the New Year's Six Bowl, the Orange Bowl between Texas A&M and North Carolina, 8:00. A&M is a 7.5-point favorite. Jake?
Okay, so the Ohio State-Clemson game, I chose to go with my head over my heart. I think this game, though, I'm going to go with my heart, and I am tired of hearing these Aggie fans complain about Texas A&M not being in the college football playoff. I'm tired of reading Kellen Mond's tweets and talking about how Ohio State doesn't deserve to get in or Notre Dame got blown out so they don't deserve to get in. So just based on that, I think North Carolina is a good team. I love what Mac Brown's done with that program. But just based off my hatred for A&M right now, I'm going to take North Carolina because I want to see Texas A&M lose, and I want to see all those SEC lovers just get it shoved right back in their face.
Yeah, and Mac Brown's program, they've lost 3 games this year. I mean, that's a lot of games to lose. In the ACC that is not particularly strong. I mean, we saw Wisconsin struggle in the Big Ten, and they laid down an ass whooping in their bowl game. And so I don't know how good the ACC is. This is a matchup that I'm really looking forward to. I actually have Texas A&M in Jimbo Fisher's group winning this game. Do I want them to win the game? I don't know about that. But I think they do get the win. I don't think they're as good, though, Jake, as people think they are. And I am tired of the same thing that you're tired of, and that's people running their mouths in not paying attention to actually what's happening on the field. Because if you're paying attention to what's happening on the field, you know that Texas A&M is not near as good as they're being said that they are. They're not. They're not at all.
Yeah, guys, North Carolina is going to win this game. Texas A&M is still too concerned about how they didn't get in the college football playoff. They should have been in the college football playoff to begin with. If, like I gave Florida some advice and other teams, if you wanted to make it, don't lose. It's as simple as that. Don't lose the games you lost. And A&M, you weren't going to get a rematch against Bama. Nobody wants to see you get knocked out in the first quarter. Nobody wants to see that. So I'm taking North Carolina. Mac Brown and the Tar Heels have played well this year. Guys, we're done covering the games, and I'm abruptly going to end it like that. We're going to talk about an SEC team, though. But for all of our listeners out there seems to be a lot of people that say, oh, the SEC is the best conference in football. Well, you're wrong. You're wrong. Just because you have the number one team in the country doesn't mean you have the best conference in football. You have 7 teams below 500. And, you played a full schedule. So there is a big enough sample size to tell you you're not the best team or the best conference in the country. 7 teams below 500, 2 teams with 500 records. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams in the SEC with a winning record. That doesn't show the best conference in college football. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I'll tell you right now, it's not the SEC. And so let's go ahead and talk about an SEC team, guys. What the hell happened to Florida? A team that ran their mouths, a team that, if you ask their fans, Kyle Trask, a Heisman candidate. But Jake, before I throw it to you, I want to ask you both a question. If you're a really good quarterback, aren't you supposed to make players around you better?
Typically, yes.
Typically,
answer,
right?
And that's a better question for Jake there. He knows.
Right.
Yeah, because we haven't played the position.
And Jake did shake his head yes for people listening that aren't on our live stream today. But Mitch, Florida was without Pitts and Grimes and so-and-so. Oh, but you have Kyle Trask, the one that you said should be the front runner for the Heisman, top quarterback in the nation. Is that the same quarterback that got benched because he sucks? Emphasis on sucks. Overrated. Florida overrated. SEC overrated. Okay, Jake, take it away.
Mitch, I can agree with you more. I think the people that are defending Kyle Trask because he was missing some of his top skill players are probably the same people that called out Baker Mayfield after the Browns lost to the Jets without 4 of their top receivers. I mean, people just have a tendency to be hypocritical with this kind of stuff. And yeah, Kyle Trask went out there. He played bad. There's no other way around it. He played bad.
Bad's Florida really nice. You're giving him a compliment right now.
Yeah, that's very nice.
You must really like Kyle Trask.
I did like Kyle Trask going into the game, which is why I didn't want to see him go out like that. But with that being said, yeah, he didn't show up. Dan Mullins didn't show up, and he'll come out and talk about, the scout team players played good. And he doesn't understand that that's such a disservice to your team. I mean, if you're those guys that came in there, whether you're the second or third string, you get put in that game, you're going out there and expecting yourself to compete with anybody. But hearing comments like that from your head coach tells you that he doesn't think you're good enough to compete at that level, that he went into that game last night with the excuse in the back of his head that, all right, my team will probably lose this game because we're playing these backups right now and we're not going to be able to compete with Oklahoma. So just the whole scenario with Florida, I can't stand it, and I hate it. It was terrible.
And for those that, Jake touched on what Dan Mullen said, I have his actual quotes right here after getting embarrassed by Oklahoma. So let's start with the first one. And I quote, "The last game this 2020 team played was 11 days ago," end quote, referencing the SEC championship game. The next one, and I quote, "We didn't have to play," end quote. Finally, another one, "I thought our scout team guys played well," end quote. Jordan, didn't think it was possible for this guy to be hated even more than he already was after defending a player that threw a shoe. One, if you thought your scout team guys played well, you're a moron. I mean, straight up, you're a moron.
Who mentions their scout team guys? Who does that?
If I'm a player there, I'm leaving. And you know what? I will leave because Florida is ineligible next year for a bowl game because of recruiting violations. And who's their head coach? Oh, Dan Mullen. Shocker.
Oh man, was that the headline you told me not to check Twitter for? Was that the headline?
Oh no, that's been out for a couple weeks now.
Oh man, I must have missed that. But you know what I didn't miss, Mitch? I didn't miss fake Kyle Trask. I said this 6 weeks ago when we started covering your balls daily, guys. When we started covering your balls on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I said this at the beginning. Go back, look at it. Almost pulled the tape on it. Some foods you don't need to try twice to know if you like the food or not. In some people, you don't have to watch multiple times to know, do they have it or do they not have it? In Kyle Trask, he doesn't have it. He threw three interceptions in the first quarter last night. I mean, what Heisman candidate goes on a 3-game losing streak to end the season? Who's the last Heisman candidate? I said it at the beginning of the year that, not the beginning of the year, but, weeks ago that I don't think that he was a top 10 player on his team. Now, that might have been a ridiculous comment. However, I don't know how good a top 10 player on that team really is. So, hey, maybe he is. But even if he is a top 10 player on his team, how good really is he? This has to be with coaching, right? Because Florida has the talent. They don't lack the talent. This is Dan Mullen. This is like the scarlet letter on his resume. This is bad. This is a bad year. And Dan Mullen is not the guy you want to be right now. He's just not the guy you want to be.
No, I completely agree. Florida, an embarrassment to their conference, to their program, to the university. The one good thing I will say is apparently after reports, there were no shoes thrown by any Gator players last night in that bowl game. Good to see that they're getting better as weeks go on. Something to keep your eye on next year. It seems that their opener, the over/under set at 2.5 shoes thrown. So that's what's something to keep an eye on. So, Jake, before we let you go, 1-word answer or 2-word answer if you're going to go first and last name. Which coach is more disliked throughout all of college football? Dabo Swinney or Dan Mullen?
It's got to be Dan Mullen. To see a coach deflect like that after a horrible loss, I mean, just taking none of the blame, putting it on his own shoulders, it's got to be Dan Mullen for me.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Mullen is I would rather be coached by Dabo Swinney than this is not 2 words. Let me just say it's Dabo Swinney because no one hates anything more than winners. Just ask the Patriots. Just ask Bill Belichick. Dabo Swinney's won 14 games in his career 6 times. That is outrageous. He's already a top 5 coach all time, maybe top 3. I think he's the best college coach I've ever watched, arguably. It's Dabo Swinney.
Jordan, I'm going to rebuttal against that. I agree with you, and I think that's why a lot of people dislike Nick Saban. I have never seen a coach that wins so much whine so much. Dabo Swinney complains about everything, and that's a fact. Whether he's a winner, he's a good football coach. They win.
He's a great football coach.
I have never seen somebody whine as much as Dabo Swinney and complain as much as Dabo Swinney. And Dan Mullen had a bad year. He had a really bad year. 2020, not a lot of people's years. It certainly wasn't Florida's year or Dan Mullen's year, excuse me. But Dabo Swinney has such a punchable face. I mean, oh my gosh, I want to punch him right in the face.
He does have a punchable face. He definitely does.
The TikTok he made where it was like a Christmas carol and something about his drip and he wore gloves and it was just like, God,
how much time on your hands do you have that you found a TikTok with Dabo Swinney on it? I think that's a bigger indictment on you. Right, Jake, that he found that TikTok.
Oh, it went viral because of how cringeworthy it was. Listen. I need less time from what he took to make that TikTok to roundhouse his ass. That's all I got to say about that.
All right.
And that's what we'll leave it at for our college football segment. Jake, as always, we thank you for joining us and giving us your insight.
Yeah.
And
thank you, Jake.
We'll leave it at that and hopefully have you back for the national championship preview. And
all right, guys.
Thank you again.
We appreciate your time.
Yep. Have a happy New Year's, guys.
You too.
You too.
That was our college football analyst, Jake Pallotta. Shout out to Jake again. I don't think, oh my gosh, hold on. Yeah, it's more people clapping. Thank you, Jake.
Standing ovation here in the studio right now, actually, if I look around for Jake Pallotta. Phenomenal, per usual. And guys, don't go anywhere. In just a few minutes, we have a new guest, Nick Padone, host of his own show and a writer. joining us to preview Cleveland Browns versus the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. But first, Jordan, it's time for the half-hour headlines.
Let's run
Even
it.
though it's the hour headlines because we're long today, but that's okay because we're giving the people what they want. Jordan, first up, after looking at some news, it looks like Texas Roadhouse cannot sponsor a bowl for the Texas Roadhouse Rolls Bowl.
It's worth a try.
Next year. It was worth a try. I mean, I just wanted to say that. And Jordan, we're actually going to keep it short today because we need to dive into the NFL. So let's talk about one NFL headline. We'll talk about the Browns and their COVID protocol with Nick, but Ryan Fitzmagic of the Miami Dolphins, Jordan, has tested positive for COVID-19 and will not be available for the game versus the Bills this week. I know you did not know that. I told you not to get on anything because I wanted a genuine reaction. It was first reported by NFL Network. What are your thoughts?
Wow, that is a huge. It's huge just for the fact that Brian Flores. It's great for Tua. This is actually really good for the Dolphins because Tua doesn't have to look behind his shoulder anymore. He can just play confidently, and he doesn't have to worry about if somebody's going to come take his job. But for the Dolphins, man, that is it's unfortunate that you don't have like a life vest, like a life. It's a life vest, right? You put on the water, life vest.
Yep.
That's what Ryan Fitzpatrick is. He's a life vest. Any good backup quarterback is a life vest, somebody you can put in, manage the game, but not only can he manage the game, he can go win the game. So Ryan Fitzpatrick not being there, it's going to help Tua, but could possibly hurt the Dolphins depending on how Tua plays. But I think it's good for Tua's psyche. What do you got?
I don't know if it's good for Tua's psyche. I really don't, because I think Tua has benefited knowing that there's this safety net behind him almost, and he's been very willing to let Ryan Fitzpatrick come into games.
You think that's more of a benefit, though?
I do. Call me crazy, but I do. Because he's seen what Ryan Fitzpatrick can do, and he knows the coaches have confidence in him. But let's be honest, he's a rookie quarterback that's going to struggle. We've seen rookie quarterbacks do it before. And I think knowing that you're going into a win or go home game now, and if you struggle, he knows he has to have his best game of the year now. There's no questions asked.
No doubt.
He has to. And I wonder if that's going to be too much for him. And we'll see Sunday when they play Buffalo.
Yeah, we will.
And Jordan, there's actually one more I wanted to bring up to your attention. One of your favorite talk show hosts in all of sports radio and television, Brandon Marshall, said Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen are the best quarterback and wide receiver duo in the NFL. Do you agree with him?
Man, that's hard to disagree. I think Stephon Diggs is arguably the best wide receiver in the game right now, and who's throwing the ball? It's Josh Allen. And I can't really argue with what the Bills have done. I said that they were Super Bowl contenders about 5 weeks ago. That's not a bad take. It's not necessarily the take that I would say. I would say Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes personally. But everybody's entitled to their opinion, and Brandon Marshall is not one of my favorite people on favorite analysts. So that's a lie, America. Don't listen to Mitch Balla. That is a lie. Also, shout out to this guy's mother, Lisa Balla. It's her birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Mom.
Happy birthday, Aunt Lisa.
40s never looked so good.
No, gosh, she looks young. But yeah, that's how I'm feeling about it.
I agree. Right now, they're the hottest and best duo. I also think you need to throw Rodgers and Adams in there. Another dynamic duo when it comes to quarterback and wide receiver.
No doubt.
I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. And so before we pull Nick in for our guest, reminder to subscribe to our YouTube page right now if you're watching live. Subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast. Leave us a review, rate us 5 stars or 1 star if you think we suck. That's cool too. We like honesty. I mean, we're honest with you guys when we're covering your balls, and that's all we want.
We do like honesty.
We do like that. So, Jordan, without further ado, let's move to the NFL and let's pull in our first-time guest, Nick Padone. He is the host of Padone My Take and a writer at Dog Pound Daily, and he joins us now to preview the biggest game for the Cleveland Browns since they have returned in 1999. Nick, how are you doing today?
Hey, Mitch, what's up, man? I'm good. I'm glad to be on the show with you guys. And yeah, the biggest Browns game of my life, probably the biggest Browns game of your guys' life as well. And I'm excited to break it down with you guys.
Absolutely. And so let's start right there. Nick, you're a writer for Dog Pound Daily. So before we dive into the matchup and everything, what kind of insight and what truth you have to all the COVID rumors around the Browns? We know they closed down their facility again today. It is December 31st if you're listening to this after it's put out there. So Nick, what can you update us with?
Yeah, so here's what we know, right? Facility closes this morning. Again, second day in a row. It was also closed yesterday after a practice squad player had tested positive yesterday, as well as an assistant coach. We have learned to this point, as far as the assistant coach goes, is not either of the coordinators. It's not offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt. It's not defensive coordinator Joe Woods. It's not head coach Kevin Stefanski. It's not Mike Prefier either. So the main group of coaches will be heading to First Energy Stadium for the Browns on Sunday, which that's the good news. The bad news, the COVID news rolls over today. 2 players test positive, Harrison Bryant and Malcolm Smith. This late into the week, guys, even if the Browns do win this game on Sunday without those 2 players, I doubt they'd be available for the first round of the playoffs because of the NFL's, 10-day mandatory quarantine, regardless of tests for players that test positive. So those 2 will be cutting it really close regardless, but that's what we know at this point. And the facility is still closed, as far as I know, up until this point, and they're doing the good old contact tracing fund. A bit that comes out of this, though, so if any players are contact traced and, they find that there was a high-risk close contact player to either Malcolm Smith or Harrison Bryant, that player will not play on Sunday against the Pittsburgh Steelers because there's not enough time for those 5 consecutive negative tests. So it's something to think and worry about. It should be okay because Harrison Bryant was already in isolation. Malcolm Smith, though, was not. So something to keep an eye on.
Mitch, let me ask Nick a question here. Early in the season, was it not 3 days? You only had to pass 3 negative tests in a row, correct? To get back on the field. Is it now 5 or how does that rule how does that play out?
Yeah, it definitely seems like it changed. I have no idea when it changed, but it is up to 5 now. That's how the Browns, found themselves in that receiver whirlwind of a mess against the Jets. I'm sure we might talk some about that as well, but yeah, it's 5 now. So you need those 5 negative tests, and they just won't have enough time for if there are any close contacts. Good news, though, today that came out on Thursday. The receivers back. Rookie linebacker Jacob Phillips back at practice, and Stefanski sounds optimistic that Carl Joseph could be on the field on Sunday for the Browns as well. So even though you had 2 guys go down to the COVID reserve list, you definitely have a handful of your main horses on their way back, guys.
That's good news.
And that's great news. So we know that Jarvis Landry, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Rashard Higgins, and Kadarius Hodge now are back and practicing off that COVID reserve list. Those are the 4 that missed this past weekend's game against the Jets. Another player besides Jacob Phillips, who is also back, that missed that game was B.J. Goodson, Nick. He is the defensive signal caller for the Browns defense. He is still out, correct? So now the Browns are down B.J. Goodson and Malcolm Smith at the linebacker position?
Correct. Yeah, B.J. Goodson and Malcolm Smith. Andrew Sendejo is also ruled out. And I know us as Browns fans, we love being hard on him. But defensive coordinator Joe Woods and Coach Stefanski have both said ad nauseum the reason why Sendejo is out there is because he is a leader on that defense. And we see, when Sheldrick Redwine comes in, somebody that I'm, high on at least keeping as a mid-round pick to develop into a rotational free safety. It's not the same as when Sendejo's in there. That's when some of the blown coverages and the miscommunications issues pursue. So it's not like the Browns have a surefire thing behind Sendejo, and he's a leader. And like you said, Mitch, without Goodson, without Malcolm Smith, Ty Davis was limited at practice yesterday with an ankle. Sione Takitaki also limited at practice yesterday with an ankle. We'll have to see if they can get on that practice field this afternoon to get an update on those 2 guys and their progressions towards playing on Sunday. But right now that linebacker room is looking awfully thin, and I'm sure hoping Coach Stefanski is hoping that those Carl Joseph nasal swabs keep coming back negative because they might need him to play some linebacker on Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jordan, how do you feel about that? Does that waver your confidence going into Sunday?
No. We're still playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't care who the Steelers have on the field. I just watched somebody smack a trash can Good driving. My opinion has not really changed at all. And this is because we're the Cleveland Browns. I'm hoping that after this year, I can throw that away where, like, I give that default answer. Well, we're the Cleveland Browns. Like, I want to say that in a positive light. Sendejo, I think the reason why we give him so much hell is because he doesn't look like a really athletic person. He's not really fast. Mitch, you probably see yourself playing his position better than he plays his position currently. And I think a lot of Browns fans see that because there's nothing he does that jumps off on the paper. It's the intangibles, like you said, Nick. He's a leader. And when you can put people in the right place on the field, sometimes, we can afford to put you on because you're doing other things. You're not just a liability. You do have strengths. And he does have strengths. And he had a huge hit 2 games ago. Did he not? I mean, that was a huge third down tackle. He's had some in 2 weeks before that. He had the interception in the back of the end zone, and he had another third down. He doesn't tackle well in space, and that's the thing that I think he's improved on as the season's gone on, which is I think a huge thing for us. Man, I think this game's going to be super close, guys, and I'm not excited about it at all. Not at all. I almost want to watch the game with both hands over my eyes like this, with just kind of peeking through. We'll see how this plays out, but it's nice to know that we have our wide receivers back. How big do you think it is that Bryant may be out? Because Baker, it seems like that's one of his favorite targets right now.
Yeah, it's weird. And we know that Baker, ever since his days at Oklahoma, he loves targeting the tight ends. As far as Harrison Bryant himself is concerned, he's just the one that Stefanski is fascinated with right now. We haven't seen much of David Njoku. When those snap counts drop on Monday mornings, David Njoku is only seeing about 20 to 30% of the offensive snaps, which I personally think is low because the guy was drafted in the first round for a reason. He's a freak of nature. I know the problem with the drops definitely exists, and I know the team knows that and the coach knows that, and that's why he hasn't seen the field as much. But as of late, it feels like whenever Njoku is on the field, something good happens. So as far as Harrison Bryant goes, I think the Browns will be okay plug and playing Njoku, as well as Steven Carlson, who is, one of Baker's underrated, targets last season. And he's a converted wide receiver. He played college wide receiver. So I think at the tight end position, the Browns will be fine solely because of that Austin Hooper addition. We could debate whether or not that was good. He got Kelsey Kittle money. Did he deserve it? Probably not. Jury is still kind of out. But I think just having him as the solidified one, whoever's, 2 and 2A, 2B, that's to be seen. But the Browns are in a pretty good spot there. I'm not too worried about that one.
Mitch, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, have we seen Njoku play this well until we put pressure on him in terms of getting more assets at the tight end position? He has had a couple. I remember drafting him in fantasy football 2 years ago. I was like, this guy's going to have a breakout year. He is so athletic for a tight end. When Austin Hooper gets the ball thrown to him, Austin Hooper is going to catch the ball. But you can almost bet your house that he's going to get 0 yards after the catch. But when David Njoku catches the ball, I mean, he could house it. He's fast. He's really athletic, nimble. He's hopping over people. Do you think
he's an Olympic hurdler.
Exactly. Do you think he's playing that well because of the pressure that's been placed on him? Because he knows he's basically playing for a contract elsewhere because there's no way that the Browns are going to go into next offseason with 3 tight ends roster, at least 3 tight ends of this caliber on the roster.
You said it perfectly. He's playing this well because he's auditioning for somebody to come get him off the Cleveland Browns because he has requested a trade once, rescinded the request, and then rumors came out again that he wanted to be traded again. He wanted out of Cleveland. He's playing like a number 1 wide receiver. I mean, listen, his athleticism is off the charts. All 3 of us can sit here and agree with that. And if you're watching us or listening to us and you don't agree, then I don't know what you're watching. Maybe you need to turn on the TV when the Browns play. I think that could be your issue. Or maybe you're on the wrong channel. I don't know. But he's very athletic. And Nick, you touched on it. His issue has been drops, stone hands. I mean, I'm not worried that he's going to get COVID because he can't catch a football anyway, let alone is he going to catch the virus. So who knows what happens there. But Jordan, he is playing because of all the pressure on him and because he wants out so bad. He knows he needs to impress for a team to come trade him. It's as simple as that, in my opinion. I sure hope that he continues to progress and rethinks it and stays here. But I also am not sold that he will be here next year because of contracts. You look at the offseason, and this is something for later down the road, but are they going to give Baker the 5th year? Are they going to give, I almost said Chubb the extension? Denzel Ward, are they going to extend him? I mean, so much money needs to be dealt in this offseason. Well, like I said, we'll touch on that later, but I think Njoku will be traded this offseason, but that's why he is balling right now. And someone that was balling. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, the Browns did pick up David Njoku's 5th year. So regardless of what, as far as like he can't walk, like he's technically under contract. So he'll be back in a Browns uniform unless somebody wows Andrew Berry with an offer. And it sounded like there were offers out there towards the deadline, but just nothing that was worth Berry doing. But you guys definitely raise an interesting point that Njoku probably knows that his, immediate future, especially if he keeps playing like this, is not in Cleveland with the Browns.
But right. I do respect, Mitch, and this is all to say this, I'll let you go, that we're watching all these other players demand trades and act like buffoons. We've seen it with Jamal Adams at the Jets. We've seen James Harden currently right now. We've seen so many players. I'm not going to list all of them. But I really respect the fact that he is still playing, and he's playing inspired. So even though you don't want to be in Cleveland, we appreciate you, son. We appreciate
you. And this is a year that has so many loopholes to not play. He could easily say, I'm opting out because of the virus, and he hasn't. So I will give him all the credit there. I still, in my memory, last year, I still see him catching a ball and getting stripped by a 5'7" corner from the Bengals. And David Njoku is this freak of an athlete that posts modeling pictures all the time. It's like, how do you let that happen? I don't know. I'll finally get over that. But let's talk about the actual game now, Jordan and Nick. And we know Mason Rudolph is starting. We know Big Ben is not dressing. We know their center is out. We know Cam Hayward is out. TJ Watt will not play. Now we do know Juju Smith-Schuster, Claypool, James Conner will play. It sounds like Minka Fitzpatrick will still play. Nick, what do you think any more Steelers are going to be ruled out to rest, or do you think we have all the names out? And how do you feel about the Browns going up against this part first team, part second team?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I think there's a chance that, and if I was the Steelers, if I was Mike Tomlin, I would rule more out. I mean, your best corner on your roster is Joe Hayden. And if you look at his career, who knows it better than the three guys on this call right now? Yeah. Has an injury-prone past. And then Minka Fitzpatrick, who's like your most valuable asset on defense. You want to have him in a bubble. Joe Hayden, who's old, in this meaningless game. If I'm the Steelers, I'd even pull a few more guys than what they have, and there might be a chance that they do so. Maybe they're just trying to keep them practicing throughout the week so rust doesn't pile on these guys, especially before the playoffs. But I was kind of shocked to see that they're going to trot out Joe Hayden and Minka Fitzpatrick. Was kind of fascinating to me. As far as how I think the Browns will stack up against the backups, the only thing I worry about, again, guys, with the Browns is our defense, right? I mean, especially now you got no Malcolm Smith, you got no BJ Goodson. Well, what do the Steelers have is 3 good receivers that could catch slants, because if we're being honest, that's about all Big Ben is looking to throw at this current moment. I'm worried is he's going to hit Deontay Johnson in the middle of the field for 5 yards every single play down the field. And like Jordan said, the Browns are going to find themselves in the midst of a shootout. I'm letting you guys know on these airwaves right now, I am watching this game in isolation. I'm perfectly healthy. I feel fine. I'm sure my friends and girlfriend and others will be doing things for this game, family as well. I will be watching this game by myself because it is going to take the biggest emotional toll on me as maybe the 2016 Cavs in the finals. Like it's that. If you guys think about the anticipation and the buildup for each and every one of those finals games, we're there. We're back there in Cleveland, Ohio with sport.
I like that you said since 2016 NBA Finals, because last show, I brought up that point that this, to me, if the Browns make the playoffs, will be the best thing to happen in Cleveland I think for the majority of Cleveland fans. I mean, is Cleveland, Nick, not a football town? I mean, is Ohio not a football state?
Yeah.
If the Browns made the playoffs, that is, that's just as impressive as maybe curing polio, like it's a big deal. Like it's huge. So
yeah. For the first time since 2002, you miss it that 10-6 year about a decade ago now. Like it's so overdue. The fans have been through the desert and more, with trying to get Baker Mayfield, trying to get Myles Garrett. Now's the time. This is it right here. You have a prime opportunity. I get that it's a weird year. You played a quarter of your games on Neptune with the snow, the sleet, and everything else, the rain that happened. You had guys go down with COVID contact tracing against the New York Jets. But had I told you when we were doing the schedule game, on Twitter, when the schedule drops and fans put in their season predictions, that come week 17, end of the year, the Browns have a shot against the resting Pittsburgh Steelers to make their first playoff berth since 2002. As a fan, I would take that. Like, I would want to see that, and it's here. So we can't be afraid of it. We need to embrace it.
Oh, absolutely. We definitely. I mean, you brought up Brandon Marshall earlier. You said that he was one of my favorite analysts, which is not true. But one of his co-hosts, Nick Wright, is one of my favorite analysts because he just doesn't bring up opinions. He brings up facts and things that are very, very relatable. And one thing he said this week is, if before the year, our expectations were if we went 10. Before the year, if I said, hey, we go 10-6, we don't make the playoffs, are you upset? Both of you say what?
I say no. I say you grew with a rookie head coach, with a quarterback that looked dang near the bottom of the league last season. I say no. If you're 10-6 and Baker Mayfield started all 16 of those games, you showed improvement.
But how about now? How about I say we miss the playoffs, we go 10-6, but let me tell you the last three teams that we had to play. The Jets, the Steelers, who aren't playing anybody, and we played the Giants. We beat them. Now, wouldn't it be disappointing if you knew the teams that we lost to miss the playoffs? Like, our expectations, like, to be 10-6, like, I'm cool with it. Would I be upset if we missed the playoffs? Of course. I'm not an average Browns fan, though. I want to say I'm a little smarter than the average Browns fan, and I don't say that because I think I'm incredibly intelligent. I see what Browns fans tweet. I'm watching. I see it. And you guys are sending some wild stuff out there. If the Browns make the playoffs, it'll be the best Christmas gift, you could give to me.
All right. I think if the Browns win this game in a non-COVID pandemic world, the city burns down. And in a non-COVID pandemic world, if the Browns lose this game, those people you're talking about on Twitter, the city burns down, and they'll be calling for a new quarterback, and they'll be calling to fire Kevin Stefanski because he, quote unquote, will have lost the locker room, losing 2 games in a row for the first time all season. There's going to be those idiotic people out there, and that's okay. They got to live their life. But the question you asked, Jordan, was if you told me before the season started we'd go 10-6 and miss the playoffs, how would I be? I'm torn because originally I'd say that's improvement. We made strides. It means our division is insane, which it is. But I'm also hurt because they added an extra playoff team and you go 10-6 and don't make it. But the thing a lot of us aren't taking into account is that there are other teams that have 10 wins. I mean, we've seen season guys where last year, for example, the Tennessee Titans got 9 wins and got in. There's not going to be anybody that has single-digit wins in the AFC this year that makes the playoffs. In fact, there's going to be one team with double-digit wins that doesn't get in. And it could very well have 11 wins and they don't get in. It's mind-boggling to me that could happen. But Nick, like you said, I'll be watching this game in isolation with my dad. Jordan, obviously, being the family we are, he's been over here watching Browns games with us throughout my entire life. I don't enjoy watching games with other people besides my dad and Jordan and his dad when he would come over. I'm not one to go out to a bar because I am emotionally attached, as are you two, to the Cleveland Browns. So you bet your ass Sunday at 12:45 when I'm watching, the pregame show on CBS, I'll be in the man cave with my dad and my phone will be on Do Not Disturb. And I only will text when I want to text somebody about something. And that's how I'm going to be. And I know Nick's like that, Jordan. I don't know how you're going to be Sunday, but how are you nervous, Jordan, or are you excited? Because for me, based off what we saw happen the past, week, I'm nervous this week can't go by fast enough. I mean, these days are acting like they're 36-hour days instead of 24-hour days. So how are you going to feel?
Oh, I mean, I will 100%. I won't even be watching this game on my TV. I'll be up and I'll actually be probably watching it on this computer that I'm recording on right now, for the simple fact that I don't think the public wants me to be out in public. Like, people don't want me out there. I almost got kicked out of B-Dubs last year when the Browns played the Patriots and they turned the ball over 3 times on 3 straight plays. Not possessions. I mean, it is possessions, but 3 straight plays. I almost got kicked out because I was screaming like a madman. And so I would say I'm a very rational person. The Browns make me irrational. They also can make me a little angry. However, I have been super lenient with this team this year. So I will, in terms of when we've made mistakes, I haven't... well, I'm still here. I haven't jumped off a bridge. I haven't jumped into a lake like Hugh Jackson. I'm still here. So I'm more nervous than excited. I don't really want to say excited. Like I said, I'll probably watch the game. It's possible that I just listen to the game with Jim Donovan because there's nothing better than listening to his voice while a Browns game's going on. So that might be my best option because I don't know if I can watch it.
Guys, one point I'll make before I move on with this is Mitch Farnsworth, Jordan. He watches a lot of our shows. He just wanted to point out that when we say this is the biggest Browns game, in years, they often don't deliver. Hence the Pittsburgh Steelers game the first time, the Baltimore Ravens game on Monday night, and now this one. JJ, thank you for wishing my mother a happy birthday. I appreciate that. I'll let her know. But so let for the rest of this show, this is not the biggest game in Cleveland Browns franchise history. Let's get the good karma rolling. And Nick, I'm going to throw it to you. What do you think will happen Sunday? Give me, your rundown of what you expect to happen. Give me your X factor, whether it's for the Browns or Steelers, and then your prediction. And then we'll throw it to Jordan for his.
All right, cool. I'm going to preface this by saying reports come of Berea today that Baker Mayfield was electrically locked in. Different guy than he's been all year. And he talks about it all the time, right? He's Mr. Back against the wall, Mr. Underdog mentality, this, that, and the other. I think we win that New York Jets game if Baker doesn't put the ball on the ground 3 times. And Mitch knows I'm a Baker Mayfield fan. Like, going into that draft in 2018, I wanted Baker Mayfield so bad. I thought that he would, and solely off of his attitude. As far as talent goes, I thought all 4 of them were similar. I still think really the big 3 are similar in Baker, Darnold, and Allen. Obviously, Josh Rosen is the one outlier, and even that is kind of to be determined now that he's getting another chance out west. But that's why I wanted him. Any of Allen or Darnold, we're going to be here. We're going to lose a couple games. The fans were going to be chanting for the backup in First Energy Stadium like we've seen throughout our whole entire lives. They lose the locker room. The receivers don't trust the quarterback. The line doesn't trust the quarterback. And the whole thing goes into hell in a handbag. Baker Mayfield throughout his Browns career has been different. He started every game. He's been healthy, which is a very rare trait across football, even at the quarterback position at times. And to hear this report that he came in there in week 17 in the middle of a pandemic of contact tracing, all this, a completely different guy, that lit a fire of hope under me for this game. I think it's still going to be tremendously close. I don't trust our defense against the Pittsburgh Steelers receivers at all. I think the front 4 can shut down Mason Rudolph, can slow down James Conner and Benny Snell. I don't think very highly of those 2 players at this year. At least they haven't done very much for the Steelers running the football. I think it's going to be a game where we see Mason Rudolph act like Big Ben. Truly, stand in the pocket and hit the receivers on short, safe throws. And if the Pittsburgh Steelers can't move the ball that way, it'll be a rout. But if they move the ball the way that I expect them to, it's going to be close. It could come down to who has the ball last. I'm nervous as hell for it. But with the guys that the Steelers are sitting out, the Browns have more talent. It's another one of those situations. The Browns have Baker. The Browns have Landry. The Browns have Myles Garrett. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Kevin Stefanski is my X factor, Mitch, because he needs to go back to the sauce that works. He needs to run that football. I don't care if the Pittsburgh Steelers and their backup defensemen, and they're, by the way, on like their third string linebackers too, guys, because, Devin Bush goes down, then Spillane goes down. They're on their third linebackers too. I don't care if they load that box. Kevin Stefanski, if you're listening to the Cover Your Balls podcast on Thursday, December 31st at 3:30 p.m., no matter what they put at you, you need to run that football. You need to stick with your guys because they've gotten you this far. If it wasn't for Nick Chubb, if it wasn't for Kareem Hunt, you're not sitting here with a chance to, go 11-5 and crack the playoffs for the first time since 2002. Run those guys and the Cleveland Browns are going to be fine regardless of what Pittsburgh decides to do. That's all.
Man, you stole my X Factor. It should be noted that there's a lot of great Kevins out there. There's Kevin Bacon in Footloose. Kevin Bacon, you were awesome in Footloose if you're watching this right now. There's also another Kevin in Home Alone. That's Macaulay Culkin's character. Kevin Stefanski, you were meant for greatness. Kevin Bacon was great. Macaulay Culkin was great. Now it's your turn. I don't care what happens this weekend other than do not throw the ball more than 30 times. The ball shouldn't even probably be in the air more than 30 times, maybe 25. We threw the ball 53 times last game, and the formations and all the tape showed that the box really wasn't as stacked as other people said it was. Now, I understand that we struggled on the rushes that we did have, but you're going to have that. Commit to the run. Earlier in the season, Nick, we were playing the Philadelphia Eagles, and me and Mitch are texting during the game. And we are really, really, really struggling to run the ball. And Mitch, what did I say? I said, don't stop running the ball. Yep. At some point, they're going to tire out, and Chubb is going to break loose. Just keep running the football. If you're going to lose behind a strong identity. Don't lose because you tried to be somebody you're not. The Cleveland Browns are not this high-flying passing attack. Yes, can Baker Mayfield make the throws? Yes, he can make the throws. But is Baker Mayfield better than Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the backfield? No, and that's okay. That's not a shot at Baker Mayfield.
No.
That's not at all. Do what you do well and do it often. And do it every single down. And if we can do that, I think that possibly, Nick and Mitch, I think that this game could be, I think there could be a bigger margin in terms of the points if we continue to run the ball like we did for the first half of the season. But we won't know that till Sunday. Mitch, how do you think this plays out?
I owe it to the audience and I owe it to you both to be completely transparent and honest with you guys.
Good, because you weren't for the first hour. That's important.
No, what? Come on. I was. Ohio State's beating Clemson tomorrow, and book it. Bet your house on it. Bet anything. But if you lose, it's not my fault. Like I've said every other show. Back to the current topic. I think it's funny that we're looking at possibly finishing 10-6 if we lose this game, and needing help to miss the playoffs. And the team we'll need help from is the Indianapolis Colts. And if you guys remember back in 2007, when we finished short, we needed Peyton Manning to just, play a half against the Titans. Play a half. Just get some touchdowns, and they started Jim Sorgi. And the Browns' playoff hopes were gone. Guys, this gives me 2007 vibes. And I'm not going to apologize that I'm going to be negative here. I'm not going to apologize that I'm not optimistic, because so far this year, when I'm not optimistic, it's benefited the Browns. And I'm gonna go back to that way. I've been optimistic the past 2 weeks against the Giants and Jets, which I should have been anyways.
Okay.
But it's gonna come down to my X factor, guys. And that X factor happens to be two people. And it happens to be somebody the Pittsburgh Steelers didn't see when we played them earlier this year in Pittsburgh. And that would be Nick Chubb and Wyatt Teller. Neither of those guys played in Pittsburgh in the first matchup this year. Kevin Stefanski, don't you dare come out here and throw the ball first play again. I don't care if TJ Watt's out, Cam Hayward's out, if Mika Fitzpatrick's out. I don't care if they're not even starting 11 guys on defense. I really don't. Your identity is run the ball. Your best Baker Mayfield is play action pass Baker Mayfield. I think you two would agree with that. Your best Baker Mayfield is when you get the run going, you can roll Baker out and use his athleticism to throw on the run. You'll have your wide receivers back. Run the ball behind J.C. Treader, Wyatt Teller, and Jack Conklin. Okay? It's as simple as that. Jed Will is back. Nick, I'll let you touch on that in a second. As far as we know, he is healthy. It was not COVID related for why he was out last Sunday, but if or if your lineup's back and healthy, which it is, you run the ball. And Nick Chubb will not be stopped by this Pittsburgh defense with their best defensive lineman out, their best defensive player out. Their linebackers, like Nick touched on, are out because of injury. Bud Dupree's another one that's out for the season, along with Devin Bush.
Which are huge. Those are two of the
They're
biggest defensive
And-
pieces. Like, if you made an all-pro team for people who are missing, like, on the injured reserve, those two are on it. Like, that's how good they are.
And for all the Steelers fans that I am friends with, I am friends with people that have different sports teams interests. You know, that's how you learn, that's how you grow. Stop complaining to me now that TJ Watt's getting held or double teamed. He doesn't get double teamed because you guys have so many different beasts on the defense that blitz every time that you can't double team him. He's now getting the Myles Garrett treatment. Welcome to what it's like to be a Browns fan with Myles Garrett, because we don't have anybody else that rushes the passer. Myles Garrett gets double teamed, triple teamed, held almost every play. Welcome to our world, but you won't get to see that now because TJ Watt's not playing. You'll see that in the first round with whoever you play. But guys, Nick Chubb's back. You feed him. You run the damn ball. That's all it is. You've heard the saying all year long, run the damn ball. That's how the Browns are going to win. I do think it's close. Nick, I'm not sure if you heard, but Mike Tomlin touched on it that Josh Dobbs is going to be dressed, and he said everybody will play. There's a lot of speculation now that Mason Rudolph will get the first half. Josh Dobbs will get the second half. I don't know about you guys. I'm more concerned about Josh Dobbs because he is more athletic, in my opinion, than I am with Mason Rudolph. Nick, I mean, I don't know if you want to touch on that, but I expect to see both quarterbacks in this week, and I'm afraid that Josh Dobbs could be a reason that the Steelers stay in this game, if not take a lead late.
Yeah, so we don't know, for sure what Mike Tomlin is drawing up in Pittsburgh right now and what his plans are. But if for whatever reason, whether it be injury, strategy, that Josh Dobbs enters the game, no matter at what point with what league, the Browns might have, because we know this team, if Josh Dobbs goes in, my anxiety meter goes up. He is Lamar Jackson light, as Trace McSorley is Baker Mayfield light. It scares me. He's much more athletic than Rudolph. He provides a spark, probably for their offense at that point in the game. He's going to try to run it all over the field. That's kind of his thing. I'd definitely be nervous if he gets in, and I hope the Steelers are – even though it doesn't matter for them really whether they win or lose this game, I hope they're stupid enough to just not put him in. Just don't learn against the Cleveland Browns whether Josh Dobbs is a good quarterback or not, because I think he is a good quarterback, and I just don't need to see it week 17 when my favorite team has a chance to make the playoffs. No thanks. But Mitch, to your point, makes me nervous.
So a third string quarterback makes you guys more nervous than Big Ben?
And Jordan.
Well, I don't know about that, Big Ben.
Let's keep in mind the Browns beat the second stringer last year and lost to the third stringer last year.
Yeah,
against the Steelers.
I think what everyone's forgetting, and something that we haven't forgot, but a lot of people are forgetting, is that they're all professional football players. They're all, even the backups, are professional football players. We have like 7 billion people on the planet, and not that many football players. So if you are on an NFL team and you are a backup, you're still pretty good. So Browns fans, you have a reason to be nervous, and you should be nervous. This is going to be close, and I saw Pat says, what have the Steelers done the past 5 weeks with Ben? Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, they've really struggled on offense, but part of that is because of their offensive coordinator. When they really made that comeback last week, they were down 24-7 to the Indianapolis Colts. Big Ben actually started calling the plays himself.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what had they done? Well, all I know is that the Steelers, the last 7 out of 8 games, guys, their opponents have scored 20 points or less. So even with a subpar offense, they've still held every team they've played, the last 8 teams, 7 out of 8 teams, to 20 points or less, which means even if your offense is suffering and you're giving the other opponent's team more chances to score, they're still not scoring. And so I don't think we can talk about how we can't say enough how good the Steelers defense is. And even with their offense playing bad, Pat, their defense is still playing better probably than anybody else in the NFL. And Big Ben, they're gonna be able to turn this around. I think they look better in their first round game with whoever they play. I don't think they
completely
win,
agree.
but I think I think they get in. I mean, not get in. I think they play well. I don't think they win round one, but they're looking better.
I agree. Last thing on the Browns and Steelers. We'll go Nick, then we'll go Jordan, then myself. Nick, who wins Sunday?
Browns.
Yeah, 28-20 Browns.
For the sake of my previous, luck, knocking on wood, I'll say the Steelers win. And then I hope that we can clip this and embarrass me on next Tuesday's episode, because I would love that. I really would. But I had this weird feeling that these COVID cases are going to keep popping up the next few days. Now, if the game gets pushed back, it's totally different. If this becomes a Baltimore Ravens-like situation for the Browns, but if it's just one or two guys a day and we keep losing guys on defense, I don't care who's at quarterback, whether it's Mason Rudolph, whether it's Josh Dobbs, whether they're going to run the Wildcat with James Conner and Snell. I don't have any faith besides our defensive line and Sheldon Richardson, Olivier Vernon, and Myles Garrett, and whoever else the fourth one is, whether it's Gustin or Claiborne or whoever else it may be. So I'll say Steelers. I know I'll get a lot of flack for it, and I'm okay with that. And I am looking into the camera at both of you right now. I'm speaking this into the mic. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, I hope I am wrong. I could not be more excited to be wrong. I'll put it that way.
Hope you are too. Hope we're dancing next week. Hope we're getting ready for a college football national title game between Ohio State and whoever they play, and I hope we're looking at a Browns first round playoff game. I hope that's what we're looking at.
I do too. Before we let Nick go, Jordan, we'll go through this quickly. We're only going to touch on games that have playoff implications around the league. Yeah. So, and this isn't in any order. This is how I have it, just based off what I was thinking this morning when I did our show notes, Jordan. Let's just start in the NFC East. Jordan, I'll have you go first. You have the Washington football team playing Philly. Philly cannot win the division. Dallas can still win the division, as can the New York Giants. So, Jordan, who's going to win the NFC East? The Giants and Cowboys play each other. So the winner of that and a Washington football team loss would get that team into the playoffs. Who do you like to win the NFC East?
Man, if the Cowboys get in, that could be an interesting round one game. I think Washington, too much. I think they're going to win this week, and if they win, they clinch it. So I'm taking Washington. But if they do lose by chance, Cowboys are going to be dangerous because they're going to win this Sunday. Mark it, put it on your calendar. Cowboys are winning.
Nick?
I think I'm picking the football team, guys. I think they just have the kind of the best thing going. Alex Smith was back on the practice field for them today. They're the best of the worst. If you have to, pick a winner to come out of that division, I think that defense plays inspired, and there's a lot of young guys on that defense, so they're definitely building for the future still, and a couple good drafts and free agencies away, but. Overall, I like the football team the best out of those. I know, both Dallas and NYG need some luck because Washington's similar situation as up here in Cleveland. Winning, you're in, so I'm picking the football team.
Well, I can tell you guys right now, I'm most certainly not taking a team that has Freddie Kitchens on it, so the Giants, therefore, are eliminated. It's between the Cowboys and the football team. I'm going to go Cowboys, as much as that pains me. I also get some enjoyment out of it because that more than likely means the Cowboys would play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the first round. And Jordan, I brought this up to you this week. Skip Bayless would just be torn on who to root for, his favorite team or Tom Brady to beat his favorite team. Because, I mean, if Tom Brady lost to the Dallas Cowboys, that's a blemish on his resume, right?
Mm-hmm.
A huge blemish. So I'm rooting. I hope the Cowboys win. And I think they do win. I think the Cowboys win the NFC East. I think Washington goes to Philly and trips up against Jalen Hurts. I think that the fact they're starting XFL or AAF quarterback, whoever it is, this week is a disaster waiting to happen. Speaking of XFL, guys, the Rams, Jared Goff is out this week. The Rams need a win to get in. It's between the Rams, the Arizona Cardinals, and the Chicago Bears. Fellas, do the Rams get the win to get in? Or is it going to be the Bears or the Cardinals? Or it's two of those three teams. I'm sorry. So give me the two teams that are in.
I'll start with that. The Rams this season, are so hard to get a read on because one game it's like, wow, these guys are legit. Like Sean McVay has this team back in Super Bowl 53 form. They're going to go all the way. This is so much fun. And then the next game, they just lay an egg completely to the New York Jets with their whole team healthy. I'm gonna pick though the Rams, even with this XFL quarterback. The only thing that makes me nervous about that pick is the Rams' run game stinks. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know who they're throwing out there on what down. Whether it's Akers, who they for whatever reason drafted ahead of J.K. Dobbins, whether it's Malcolm Brown or Darrell Henderson, both of those guys are slow and inconsistent. I'm going to go against my better judgment and pick the Rams because I believe they have the superior head coach to Cliff Kingsbury. And I'm going to throw the Chicago Bears in there too, just as an underdog. And Mitch Trubisky, honestly, after his benching and resubmission, he's been good. He's been serviceable for them. David Montgomery, the Bears running back, if you guys play fantasy football, he's come into his own big time in a good way. I like the guy. And that defense is really good. Roquan Smith should have been a Pro Bowler. I don't know how he wasn't. He could still be an all-pro linebacker. That front four is really good. And I think as long as Matt Nagy doesn't do anything that makes you, rip your hair out in this game, I'm going to go with the Bears and the Rams. I'm probably dead wrong because I can't get a read on either of those teams, but that's what I'm sticking with to come out of the NFC.
Well, it's interesting. What's interesting about this is that the Rams, I'm pretty sure, could still lose this game and still get in.
Yeah.
Correct.
And who owns the tiebreaker? Do the Bears or the Rams have it? I don't know if they played head-to-head.
If the Rams lose, they would need a Chicago Bears loss to still clinch a playoff spot. So therefore, the Rams would have the tiebreaker.
Okay, because they're better in conference. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, I'm going to go with my man, this is tough because, Mitch, I've been telling you for weeks, is I like the Cardinals, but, man, they have no experience, and they're certainly going to get out-coached. But, man, as much as I don't dislike Jared Goff, but I don't think he's a very good quarterback. I never have bought into the Jared Goff hype. I think his contract is, man, his contract's like hitting the lottery. He didn't deserve it. It's unbelievable that he got that contract, but man, what I would do to have Jared Goff in this game, I've talked so much smack about this guy for weeks, and what I would do as a Rams fan to have Jared Goff play, I'm going to take the Rams, even though I want to pick the Cardinals. I'm going to take the Rams and the Bears, and I cannot believe that I have to watch a playoff game with Mitch Trubisky in it. Actually, you know what? No, I don't. I don't have to watch that game. I'll just not turn it on because it's unbelievable. If you didn't watch any games and you were in isolation and you just read headlines and you read a headline in the beginning of the season for the Bears, the beginning of the season and the end, like you just had 3 headlines, you would think, at the beginning that they're going to Super Bowl. Then you get in the middle and you're like, oh man, are they a top 10 team in the NFC? And now somehow they might get in the playoffs. It's unbelievable. Nagy might save his job. We'll find out.
I want the Bears to get in. I want Mitch Trubisky, the Ohio kid, the Mentor grad, to get into the playoffs. They play the Packers though, fellas, and the Packers have a lot of the line with that number 1 seed. Aaron Rodgers wants that playoff field to go through Lambeau. Ultimately, the game's in Chicago, but I think the Packers are going to go in there and win, meaning the Bears are done. So very well, it looks like it's going to be the Cardinals and Rams, in my opinion. Who wins that game then? It wouldn't matter. But I'm going to take the Cardinals strictly because I think if they're smart, like we don't know if Cliff Kingsbury's smart because we've seen a lot of blunders this year and last year. They stack the box against that awful run and make Wolf, is that his name? I don't know, Nick, if you know that, but I think is it Wolf is the quarterback for the Rams this week. They make him beat him. And if he beats them, then so be it. But that defense for the Rams is not single-handedly going to be able to carry them over the Cardinals. So I like the Cardinals to win, and I want the Bears in, but they lose, and the Rams still get in my opinion. So last, we go to the AFC. 4 teams fighting for 3 spots. Miami Dolphins at the Bills. The Browns home against the Steelers. Ravens at the Bengals. And the Indianapolis Colts home against the Jaguars. Nick, quickly, Just give me the 3 teams that make the playoffs. I don't care what order, 5, 6, 7. Just give me your 3 teams in the AFC that make it and the 1 team left out.
All right. In no particular order. The Browns make it. The Ravens make it. AFC North is the best division in football. And my third team, man, putting me on the spot. I'm going to say the Titans get in. Is that even possible?
Well, the Titans and Colts are still fighting for the division. So would you say?
I believe the Titans own the tiebreaker over top the Colts. So they control their own destiny. They set the whim.
And the Titans this week play the Texans.
Yeah, so I'm sticking with them. Solely, yeah. I'm sticking with the Titans, the Browns, the Ravens. Those are my 3 locks to come out of this weekend in the playoffs.
Yeah. So but I still, between the Colts and the Dolphins, one of those teams would still make it.
I hate that. Give me the Colts, man. I do. You know why? Because I look at those teams, even the Titans, like after that first half of Browns that we saw the Titans, up close ourselves as fans. None of those 3 teams are that good. None of those 3 teams are going to seriously play for an AFC championship and crack the Super Bowl. And that's what kind of just upsets me, I guess you could say, because the Dolphins literally needed to bench what should be their franchise quarterback to get to this point because they look god awful with Tua in there. And I was so excited for Tua. I think he's a great story. I love that he's a lefty quarterback like everybody does. Like, when do you see that? But man, he might stink. Like, I'm worried now that Fitzpatrick has COVID. Like, what happens if that happens again and they can't move the ball? And the Colts, like, Phillip Rivers is just begging for somebody to take him out to the pasture. He wants to be with his million kids and have more quarantine time to develop more. I'm going to go with the Colts. I think the Dolphins are good. I think the Dolphins have a bright future regardless of who their quarterback is. They've built a cool thing on that defense. Jerome Baker, Ohio State kid, Benedictine high school kid. That guy's a beast. And I think, you build that defense around him. Hell, former Cleveland Brown, Emmanuel Ogbah's played really well for them this year, and they have something going in Miami. I'm going to pick the Colts solely because I hate both the Dolphins and the Colts, but I got to just go with the Colts. They got the veteran quarterback. I think they could possibly get a win in this weekend. There it is.
Here it is. I'm going to start right where you left off. The Colts are not getting in the playoffs because they play the Texans this week. J.J. Watt came out this week, and you guys saw the 2-minute clip. Man, that team's going to play inspired. They still have Deshaun Watson. He's not sitting this week. They definitely have a chance to beat the Colts. Phillip Rivers loves to give the ball to the other team at the worst time. I think the Colts, good football team, but you have to be better than good to make the playoffs. I think they miss it. The Ravens, they will 100% certainly win, and man, they're going to give some teams, whoever they play in the first round, just fits. And then I have the Browns. So out of those 3 teams, it's not 3 teams. I have the Ravens making it. I have the Browns making it. And then my third one is I actually have the Dolphins making it. Even if the Dolphins lose to the Bills, they're still in. If the Colts lose, and the Colts are going to lose. So that's what I got. I have the Dolphins, the Ravens, and the Browns.
Before Mitch makes his pick, I just want to butt in here real quick because we just talked about like the mess that is the NFC, and the Cardinals are kind of frauds. The Rams, poor Jared Goff busted up his thumb, and they don't have a run game. The Bears are like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, literally. How fun is the AFC playoffs going to be though? Because like you said, Jordan, the Ravens could give teams fits in the first round because they're finally healthy. They have the COVID antibodies, which is a cherished thing at this time of year, and they're ready to get to go. You got the Browns, who, if they catch fire, we've seen multiple times throughout the year. There's no stopping them. The Chiefs are really good. Like the Bills are on fire. Their only loss in the last 8 or 9 games was the Hail Murray. Like, they're super fun. Pittsburgh is, Jekyll and Hyde too. Like, if they're good, it'll be fun. But if they stink, they could give a team like the Browns an opportunity to make some noise. The AFC is going to be everything that the NFC isn't come, the next couple of weeks and when we're watching playoff football. And whether the Browns are in it or not, obviously I hope they're in it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. All right, sorry, Mitch.
No, you're good.
No doubt. No, you needed to say that.
Yeah, we agree with you. I think Jordan and I are both on the same page as you.
Well,
so
it's
guys,
not that we agree with him. It was that it was the right thing to say.
I agree with that.
I like
so I'm
that.
agreeing.
Don't stop agreeing with me.
I don't agree with you.
That's what I need to hear.
The Raiders are going to make the playoffs.
Does the game this week count for 4 games? It's like when you're playing basketball and you're down by 10. Hey, this next shot is a 10-point shot.
Yeah, I'd say this next touchdown throw from Derek Carr is worth 28 points, but he sucks anyways, and John Gruden would know how to draw that play up anyway. But either way, back to makes the playoffs. The Titans lose to the Texans, guys. The Colts beat the Jags. Therefore, the Colts win the AFC South. The Ravens are in. Ravens are going to get the 5 seed. I want to go with my heart instead of my head, but I picked the Steelers to beat the Browns.
Go with your heart.
I'm going with my heart here then, and I'm going to go hoping I'm wrong with my prediction. The Browns get in, so it'll be the Ravens, the Browns, and then I believe if the Dolphins win, that would leave the Titans out, if I'm not mistaken.
That would suck. As a football fan, man, that would suck.
I could be completely wrong.
I must hate the Dolphins.
No, they're boring. They score all their points on special teams and defense. They're not fun. The only part that would make the Titans hard to watch is they have no pass rush. It might be the worst pass rush in all of football.
It's not might. It is. It is the worst pass rush.
It's really bad. But Nick, I completely agree with you. The Dolphins are like unwatchable. They're a hard team to watch. That's like the only game, if they make the playoffs, that's the only game I'll be like hesitant to watch. But I'll watch it, of course.
But
especially if Fitzpatrick's good by then.
Fitzpatrick's on, it's different, but he's not. He's out. I mean, the Dolphins aren't making it. And the Titans will get in as a 7 seed, and they'll go play the Bills. But therefore, it's going to be
you're having the
Ravens
Titans lose this week then, because they would have to lose, because remember they have the hold, Mitch, of the AFC South. Even if
right, I do have the Titans losing. I have the Titans losing to the Texans after that inspirational speech by J.J. Watt. I mean, was he wrong? He wasn't wrong.
No.
J.J. Watt's never wrong. Future Cleveland Brown, by the way, in 2021. But either way, it will be in the wild card, the last 3 teams in, the Ravens, the Browns, and the Titans. And the Colts win the AFC South.
I like it. I definitely misspoke. For some reason, I thought the Colts were playing the Texans. I apologize, guys. Yeah, that's going to be a really Texans playing the Titans. That's a huge game, guys. That's huge.
Again, they ended with each other last season, which is when Derrick Henry won the rushing title. So they're definitely going to try to get a little respect and bottle them up, I think, and we'll see what happens. I mean, we have a crazy weekend of football coming. That's why the show has been so long today. Nick, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for coming on. That was awesome.
Plug yourself quick with where are you at, where you can be found on Twitter. Go ahead, plug yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I'm always up to just a lot of stuff. I'm a type of person that can't sit still ever. So follow me on Twitter at NickPadone12. That's the surefire way that you're not going to miss out on whatever shenanigans in the world of sports media that I'm getting myself into. And to you guys, I appreciate you having me on this show. I've been wanting to do it. These video podcasts are super fun. I host my own on Twitter at Padone My Take Wednesday nights. I haven't done it in 2 weeks because last Wednesday I was getting ready for Christmas, and last night I turned 22. So
Happy birthday.
Do the show. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, guys. So, yeah, that's where to find me, and always fun talking Browns with you guys. So they're gonna win on Sunday. They're gonna prove Mitch wrong.
I agree.
I sure hope.
I agree. Well, Nick, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely, guys. Definitely.
Sure. We'll
have a good rest of your show. I'll see you. Yep.
Well, Mitch, we don't have much more to go here. In fact, we only have one segment left.
One segment left.
And Mitch, do you know what segment that is?
I do know what
segment it is.
Who has
bigger balls?
That's right. Who has bigger balls?
Jordan. No, go ahead, please.
No. By all means, the floor is yours.
No, because I want to make sure we're on the same page here. So go ahead.
We're not on the same page, guys. Unfortunately, everybody has the same size balls this week. No one has bigger balls, unless Mitch believes there are 2 individuals who he's shaking his head. Yes, you do have a who has bigger balls.
Oh, absolutely. And we're going to keep it simple.
Pitch it.
We're going to keep it simple. Is it Dan Mullen for his comments after his atrocious showing against Oklahoma? Or is it Dabo Swinney for contradicting himself, saying a team that plays less games should not be ranked higher in the coaches poll or in the playoff, but then trying to make the pitch for Trevor Lawrence to be Heisman, who, fact check, has played less games than all the other candidates. Hypocrite.
Yeah, I don't know which one's worse, but we could literally have the who has bigger balls segment just rolled off of those two coaches because, let's be honest here, they say stupid stuff every week. In fact, I didn't even know some of the new stuff Dan Mullen said, and I watched the game last night until you said something a little bit ago. Who has bigger balls out of those two? I'm going to say, and this is the first time, America, I'm going to say this. Neither of them have bigger balls. Neither of them. I don't think
small.
They are small. To say and misspeak the way both of them, it's really troubling because think about how much money those programs bring in. And when you bring in money, typically there's way more people involved, so there has to be somebody who preps you for these press conferences, right?
Usually.
Yeah, so I'm going to say neither of them have bigger balls, but I cannot not comment on the comment we got. It says, who is Dickey? Mitch Balla is wearing a Little Dicky jersey. That's my answer, Mitch.
I'll address the question first from Pat. Lil Dicky is a rapper, comedian, has a show on FX called Dave, which if you are listening out there, if you've never watched Dave,
it's great.
It is hilarious. You will laugh. It addresses some issues that people face today in some episodes, and then just his life of becoming a rapper who is one Jewish, and the steps he took to go there. He's phenomenal. One of my favorite rappers in the game today. And my brother actually got me this Lil Dicky baseball jersey for Christmas. So shout out to Evan. But Jordan, who has bigger balls? You're right. The answer is none because they both have small balls, and they just need to stop talking. Stop putting microphones in their face. Stop putting cameras in front of Dabo Sweeney when he wants to make a TikTok. Dabo Sweeney might have bigger balls because he made a TikTok. He made a TikTok in Clemson gear saying how he's dripped out. I mean, that's...
Being on social media doesn't mean you have bigger balls. Let's address that right now.
Hey, can we just agree on something? They both suck.
I agree, but some of the weakest people are some of the people who are on social media the most, who find all their validation, do all that stuff through social media. So Dabo going on social media, that makes me dislike him even more.
Yeah, it's Dan Mullen. No, it's both. It's both. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop contradicting myself. They both don't have big balls. They have small balls, and they need to shut up.
I agree.
Jordan, this is a long show, but let me tell you.
It's almost 2 hours long, Mitch.
I had fun.
I had a lot of fun, too. We're going to do this every Tuesday and Thursday, Mitch, at 4 p.m.
At 4. So those that joined in early today, thank you for tuning in. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast. Rate us. Leave a review. Thank you. I promise we will have a better Who Has Bigger Balls segment on Tuesday, our first episode of 2021. Thank you to Jake Pallotta. Thank you to Nick Padone. And thank you for listening to Cover Your Balls.
I'm Jordan McKelly.
I am Mitch Balla.
And we will see you when we see you. Cover Your Balls crew.